There's two things I'm going to say here that's extremely important. The root of all disease is inflammation. That's partly true. Here's the full truth. The root of all physical and energetic disease is lack of light. Lack of light. Period.
Gary, welcome to the show and thank you for your time. Now, biophotonics, it's an area of study which I came across probably a few months ago when I was doing a very in-depth article on hydrogen water. And if you go back far enough, it is the source of all creation. And I started thinking about that in terms then of obviously light. And why is hydrogen, medical grade hydrogen, so effective for healing us? And I sort of landed on, well, is it organizing light within the body? If it is, or if it is the foundation of light, is that potentially a thesis to explain it? And then lo and behold, biophotonics. And I can't believe I hadn't dug deeper into it. And I absolutely went down a wormhole in biophotonics and then found you, because I think you speak so beautifully on it. So can you give an overview firstly for people what the field of biophotonics is, if they've never heard of it before?
Sure. So, just to make it very simplistic, biophotonics is the study of light, specifically not just any light, but biophotons, which are the light particles that's in our atmosphere, comes to, the sun. And we all know the sun powers or the biophotons of the sun, right? It creates what? Photosynthesis in plants. In the same way it triggers all of the chemical processes in plants, it's the same way it triggers all of the biochemical processes in our bodies, right? And a little way that I like to put things into perspective is if we took the light out of everything, there's no biological organisms that would be able to survive. None. So we must ask ourselves, well, what does this light have to do with us? Like, why is it so important? And then when you kind of look at statistical evidence and you see studies that are, looking at statistics where there are countries that has lack of light, there's more suicides and depression versus countries where there's an abundance of light that lives closer to the equator. So there's a clear understanding that light also has an effect on the neurotransmitters, right? And so understanding a biophoton is a particle of light. And it's not just any particle of light, it's a particle of light from our creator. And how do you know things are from of our creator? It's because if you took the sun away, we'll die. And other things will thrive. And I'm going to really get into that in a minute here because this was my wow factor. This is what bridged the microbiology with spirit. And a lot of people think spiritualism is something where you kind of have to beat drums and stick some feathers in here and chant things all day long. It's not that. But if that's what you do to bring the light in, then that's what you do. I have learned a lot about spirituality through stem cell research. And while observing, using technologies like live blood cell microscopy, looking at how cells behave under the microscope in real time, I observed that healthy cells were beautiful and circular and had a glow of light around it, a halo around it, and unhealthy cells were abnormally shaped with lack of light around it. I'm like, what the hell does light have to do with anything? So medicine, or Western medicine, or just medicine in general, even Eastern medicine, it kind of stops there, and now you have to cross over into the world of physics. So these are where you start seeing the separation of the worlds, right? And then you start going into physics, then you start going into biophysics, then you start going into quantum physics, right? And that simply means that we have to look deeper and deeper and deeper. And every time you do that, you realize that there's more and more and more. So it's really cool how that works. So ultimately, what I noticed in the blood microscopy was there was this one woman that came in. This really got my light bulbs off. One woman came in young, um, stay-at-home mom, married to the same guy. And it was like her blood was when we looked at it in real time, her symptoms weren't matching up with her blood work, right? And I was like, this is fascinating. So looking at the blood work at the first glance, you don't see anything. When we put the biophoton next to her blood slide, her live blood smear, all of the pathogens started coming out from inside of the cell, which meant the blood tests weren't detecting it, right? But the light increased the vibrational frequency of the cell by putting more biophotons into the cell. Therefore, which means these pathogens can only exist on a lower vibrational frequency. So if you think about this for one moment, those things were thriving in the environments that we died in. So it was thriving in lack of oxygen, lack of light, lack of hydrogen. Okay. Why? Because hydrogen is a particle of unity, doesn't work by itself. So when you look at the pH balance is off, right? So there's this more acidity, there's lack of hydrogen and oxygen, and there's lack of light. And those entities thrived in that environment that we would die in. And I had to ask myself that question because no one, the biochemists are asking that, why are these things thriving? But furthermore, what was more curious? What excited more curiosity in me, Paul? How are these acellular organisms that doesn't have a brain, how are they so intelligent? Where is it getting its intelligence from? Right? So now I realize, holy crap, like their intelligence were coming from an outside source of a lower vibrational frequency. So now that we put the light in and the frequency, so the frequency is a byproduct of how much light you have coming into the body. So the more light you have coming in, the higher vibrational frequency. And we can now measure that through the biofield, aka the aura. And this is not something that's mystical anymore, right? Because we now know that when light, biophotonic light, gets absorbed into the cells, into the DNA in the cells vibrate. It's that vibration that builds out the physical body and the auric field. That's how it gets there. So coming back to this scenario with this young woman, I'm like, hold on. She's married to the same guy from high school, vegan, stay-at-home mom, doesn't eat anything raw. How are you getting these type of pathogens in your blood? How? What are you doing? Oh, well, I'm a healer. You're a healer. Which means if I give you $50, you'll take my bad energy and impart your good energy onto me, right? But where does that energy go? It only transfers, right? And over the years, she's been doing that for 10 years. Over the years, every time she did a healing for someone that's sick who gave up on medicine and they're like, I'm looking for something alternative. Every time she did that, she chipped away at her sources. And this was her back then. This is the this patient she's treating, and year by year, treatment by treatment, treatment by healing, by healing, by healing, by healing. Look what happened. She started vibrating and resonating with that. And every time she met them at that resonant frequency, the parasite was now able to enter through the biofield. So there is such a thing as an energy transfer. So in medicine, when they tell us the root of all inflammation, there's two things I'm going to say here that's extremely important. The root of all disease is inflammation. That's partly true. Here's the full truth. The root of all physical and energetic disease is lack of light. lack of light, period. And the first line of defense, it's not your immune system. Your first line of defense is your biofield, because that's what's blocking the pathogenic attacks. That's what's blocking the energetic attacks. And pathogens are the closest thing to quantum in a sense, because you can't see it. It's there. It's always around you, always 24/7 around you, wherever you go. So what is blocking that is not your immune system. It's your biofield.
Gary, you just sort of blow my mind with a few things you said, and I need to go back to. I just want to ask firstly. So when you discovered this and started asking these questions, I mean, where did you, as a scientist, it doesn't leave you many other options but to land on some sort of higher perspective, some sort of spiritual perspective. Currently, because we don't have any explanation for what you just said in terms of the lower. I mean, I'm thinking of the Hawkins scale, for example, like the lower frequency vibrations, and a lot of people have heard of this. And you can see it. What's interesting when you see people who do certain kind of jobs, for example, say police, and they're often just dealing with horrific circumstances day in, day out, they end up becoming, what's a great line? Like, be careful if fighting monsters that you don't become one yourself. And
Right.
hold on, let me just caveat that. I'm not calling all police monsters. I'm saying, but when
I
you're
understand.
in those worlds, yeah, I'm sure not for you, for other people, but those vibrational frequencies can end up becoming you. So what you're saying is you've seen that, like literally,
In
seen
the
that
blood.
happen
Seen
in
it
the
in the
blood.
blood.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I have. Yeah. And it's really interesting because, you know, 10 people can walk outside. Let's say there's a viruses floating around. 10 people can walk outside. Why would 8 get sick and why two wouldn't? You know? And your immune system is directly correlated to your biofield because we have 1,000 biophotons in each strand of DNA. We have 93 trillion strands of DNA, right? So it's very interesting that it doesn't just affect the immune system, but all of a sudden in the time of um the pandemic, everyone learned the word mRNA and RNA from I would say from a physiology point of view. Well, from an energetic point of view, not more energetic. I would say this is more science than anything, even though it may seem um, in the world of energy. Your DNA acts as a fractal antenna. That's physics, right? It's a fractal antenna. It's all these different sides, and it's a fractal antenna is designed to pick up millions and millions of bits of information, right? But the DNA is on the inside of us, so where's it getting the information from? Well, it's getting the information from the outside of us contained in our biofield. So our biofield acts as a recording device 24/7. So think about your security camera always looking around, right? 24/7. You're not seeing what it's seeing because you're not looking at it all the time. But our biofield is always recording everything going on in our reality, whether we can see it or whether we can't see it, right? And then the information comes in from the biofield to the DNA. The DNA goes through a transcription process, which is AKA a translation process, because the DNA now has to communicate with the RNA. And that information between the DNA and RNA, that line, is called a transcription process. So now the DNA starts to emit, create these different structures of proteins and sequences. So the RNA can, it's like you speaking English and I'm speaking in Latin, and we need the translator, right? So that transcription process is a translator. So the RNA picks up that information. Here's where it gets interesting. The RNA now takes that information and projects it into your reality. So the RNA works as a projector from the information coming into the DNA. Now you could understand how the external environment Your subconscious, your conscious comes in, gets this information, goes into the DNA transcribes, feeds that information to the RNA, and the RNA projects that into your reality.
Where does that leave us, Gary? So if people would dismiss, say when you're looking at the reductionist scientific method, so if people were to say energy doesn't exist because we can't measure it, for example, I'm talking energy in terms of what you mentioned, not obviously energy sources. So can we extrapolate and say there are energy forces lower and higher and mid that are in the ether, and we are tapping into them one way or another through thought patterns, through lack of exposure to light, through traumas and so on, and they're manifesting in our reality, how we then perceive our reality, and how our physical body then creates itself. And it sounds like you've actually got scientific evidence to prove that is correct to a degree.
Well, there is now, thankfully, a ton of scientific evidence to the point where it's not just hearsay. So for people like that, I will tell you this, and this study probably even hasn't emerged yet, but people who does not have the ability to accept information, that means you don't accept light on a certain level of you. So even if someone came to me and they said, well, I believe the earth is flat, but I believe the earth is round. But if I would just to reject their notion that the earth is flat, it doesn't mean I have to believe it. It means if I stayed open, I just open myself to receive some more information because there's something in their reality that is their reality. And who am I to take that away from them? So when people become overly critical or overly analytical, and you suffer from analysis paralysis or critical paralysis, you are actually blocking light coming into your DNA because information is light. Biophotons contain light. And it's not about whether you believe it or you don't believe it. It's about how you treat it. So for people like that, number one, I'm not looking to change anyone's minds. I'm not here to convince. I'm not here to do any of that. All I'm doing is sharing my life's work and my research. And if it affects you in a positive way, which I know it will, then I can only hope that it will open your mind to take a look at the next step or to believe like, oh my God, there is something to this. At least begin your journey of there is something more to what. Because if you think about this is the one thing I say, Paul. What do you know if you can learn something new every day? What do you know?
That's a really beautiful way of reframing that. Yeah, that's an incredible way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So what's some resolutions in terms of for people who are thinking, well, I'm like, we're now in a modern environment where the light has literally been demonized to such a ridiculous degree that people barely spend any time outdoors. And if they do, they're covered from head to toe. They're covering their eyes so they're not getting the light into the retinas. And then we're under blue light, like these very artificial wavelengths that we know are deleterious for our health. I mean, there's so many studies now, and it's sort of mind-boggling that we're still charging 100 k's an hour down that path. Is it as simple to say, I mean, is a simple solution to say get more sun? Or is it far more, I mean, I'm assuming it's also more nuanced in many other aspects of how we live our lives.
That is a great, great point. I think for our ancestors, like our grandparents, great grandparents, it would be easier for those generations to say, let's just get more sun. Because if you think about it, it's not that we can't get sun. It's the problem becomes the layering electromagnetic frequencies that you don't see. It's the invisible forces that are literally blocking our cells, our DNA from receiving the sun. So if you think about it, we have to suffer with so much stress more than probably many other times in history. So between stress, environmental toxins, heavy metals, lack of grounding, lack of things of hydrogen and oxygen, those things significantly over 50% depletes our ability to absorb light. So yeah, I mean it's not like back in the day when we could have done that, or just like our grandparents, like I said, because they spent a lot more time outside. They were more farming. They were more connected to the nature. They were more connected to natural remedies. They didn't have all the million pharmaceuticals that we did, but they didn't have the EMFs to contend with. You see those EMFs, it's deadly. It's a deadly force because it's the vibration that's closest to death. And this was measured. So you now have to do something so astronomically different to get out of that negative zone, because those frequencies actually affects the oscillation of your cells. And that's how cancer starts or autoimmune starts. Because if your cells, just hypothetically speaking, if your cells are supposed to be spinning with a oscillation going to the right, it's kind of reversing the oscillation. So it's really interesting. We can stand in the sun all day, but we won't get the same benefits like our grandparents or great grandparents would have. And that's why even when you look way back, like in the biblical days, which is not that far away,
No,
right? Even a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago, didn't it just seem that everyone just had more interaction with the spirit realm?
I was gonna bring that up as a really interesting point, because when you look at the world writ large now, and if it's a whole question too of how much are we projecting onto these things. So like if I'm looking at the news, for example, and you see this crazy division in the world, certainly in the West, and a complete inability on whatever side of the fence, I really don't care, but there's an inability on either side that you're on, if you're on a side, to receive any information from that other person or other side at all. It's just like, it's complete demonization. And I can't remember in my lifetime it being to this fervent pitch of like, I won't even listen to this person because they're a whatever Nazi or they're a communist or whatever slur is thrown out. It's like an illness. Like I deem it as some sort of spiritual sickness, because we've forgotten that we are all indeed connected by the forces of the planet, all made from the planet. And if you actually calm that judgment down, you will have so much more in common with your fellow human being than you could ever imagine that separates you. And I know I'm speculating that it is to do, it's becoming like this so much more because we're vibrating at a sick level due to all these overuse of technology, as you just mentioned, Wi-Fi, all the things which are sort of dismissed as, oh, you're being overly sensitive or woo-woo. But it's like, well, look at the world. It doesn't seem very harmonious when I look at it.
Yeah. And we were programmed to believe that only what you could uh see, touch, hear, smell, anything that can be related to our senses is only what we should believe. And because it even matches up with physics, because why? We're 85% energy and 15% physical matter. So therefore, when something is happening to you on the outside, it's already happened to 85% of what you are. The 15% is just a physical manifestation of the stress, of the rash, of the fever, or whatever it may be. That has already happened in 85%. But it's just our programming to say, well, if we don't see it or don't believe in it, then it must not be real. Whereas in fact, that world is more real than the physical world, where everything takes place.
So I just want to touch upon Wi-Fi and 5G in particular, because those towers seem to go up during COVID pretty damn quickly. Certainly where I was, they just popped up overnight. Now, what the hell is that thing? It looks like something out of Doctor Who. I don't know if you watched that, but some sort of evil, yeah, some sort of Dalek thing. So for people who've heard of this, yet potentially skeptical or haven't really delved into it too much, what's a sort of a broad brush overview of what that is doing to the frequencies that we swim in?
Oh God. It's
I
well,
know it's probably a
first of
separate
all,
podcast. But
yeah, I'm telling you, we can do an entire podcast on that. But first of all, I want to talk about this from a different point of view. Because of that, pathogens and viruses are much more. It's on the rise. It's like, wow, how can all of a sudden it's like a super spreader, right? When it comes to pathogenic attacks. Why? Because pathogenic attacks can only travel through a lower vibrational frequency. Guess what 5G is? So what I'm telling you is pathogens can actually spread through 5G frequencies. So it's not just a radiation attack because it's creating too much heat in the cells or in the brain when you put your cell phone. And you could buy an EMF meter, and the first thing you do when you open the booklet, they'll show you the heat index of what a human should tolerate in their cells before it actually starts to fry your cells. So this is engineering. This is electrical engineering, right? So the 5G is literally doing that. Like, would you go sit? We knew from a kid, oh, don't stand in front of the microwave. Oh, why? Now we're living in the microwave. It's the same thing. So for the naysayers or the non-believers, again, it's so much information out there, but people are choosing to not do their research or only be on one side what they see due to their belief system. But the research is overwhelming. It's no longer about what you say or what I say. There's way too much research published that shows this stuff. It's microwave frequencies, this short millimeter wave frequencies, and those things interact with the heavy metals in the body. This is why you can automatically tell. Like, I've had very, very young people of athletic nature, and overnight when those towers went up, they could not sleep. Their skin broke out in eczema, and their anxiety was through the roof. Right, and it's happening all over the world, all over the world. So it's very, very real. It's very experiential. You're gonna feel it. You live close to these things.
Well, if you look at the amount of people now on some sort of medication for depression or anxiety, or just low-lying illness, yeah, diseases, yeah,
It's the
and
biggest
it's sort of,
epidemic.
yeah. Well, I was going to say it's somewhat swept under the rug. It's not talked about in public that often how many people it is, but it's literally, as you said, it's this huge epidemic, and people are not coping, and I don't see any large health bodies coming up with any solutions other than keep medicating people. Yeah, yeah, this information seems readily available of what the cause is. So I don't want to get too, I don't want to freak people
I
out, because
understand.
there's not things that you can necessarily, if you're in a very densely populated city, for example, there's not a lot you can do by worrying about it. But what are some? I mean, you alluded to one before, like grounding, which is just basically putting your bare feet on the earth. Like, what are some things that you know of that can help mitigate these effects that people can implement?
Well, here's the thing. That's why I do what I do, right? Because it's not good enough for me to sit here and put the fear, you know, spread the fear, right? Because you can really spin someone out with this level of information, right? It's like, oh my God, now you just told me all this. How am I gonna give me a solution, right? Um, yeah, well, the solution is the biohealing stream because that is streaming pure biological light into your cells. And the only way you can save yourself is by putting light into the body, which will naturally increase your vibrational frequency. So if something is vibrating on a level of 10 and you increase your vibrational frequency to 100, that 10 can't bother you anymore. It's completely inert. So this is why we did what we did, and we figured out how to digitize it, which is another major breakthrough in this lifetime. And I don't think in the next two lifetimes we will be able to do that naturally. Because that technology, which you saw on the biohealing stream, there are no plugs, there are no wires. It's only harnessing biophotons from the atmosphere. And because it's a pure biophoton, we figured out how to stream it. So it's also neutralizing all of the EMFs by raising and increasing your vibrational frequency, not just in you, but even the space around you. And this was measured. We measured this. So we had to create the solution. And this is why we figured out, like, oh my God, people are suffering because of this. And we've used the CBD, we did their meditation, we did the grounding. And it seems to, because I was an avid meditator tuning up my chakras. And when I did that pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, I would feel the energy almost all day. And like you said, when those towers started going up, I had to do the same thing 5 times a day to accomplish that same effect, which told me something that, oh my God, I'm not getting enough energy or light energy to my body to have that effect. So everything is temporary unless you start activating your inner light. And I don't mean this from a woohoo perspective, unless you start activating, like putting more of those biophotons into your 93 trillion strands of DNA so your body could activate more biochemical processes and vibrate at a higher frequency. I will tell you something, it's the world's fastest way to get rid of anxiety in minutes. It's the world's fastest way to get to bed. And it's the world's fastest way to get out of fight or flight. And when you do that, mysteriously, everything in the body works a hell of a lot better because you're vibrating faster. So it works better.
Well, that's what drew me in initially to biophotonics is when I saw those cells. I read the studies on unhealthy cells, as you said at the start. They vibrated at a different frequency, and that's how precisely you can tell they're unhealthy, is whereas healthy cells emit a different form of pattern of light.
Yes.
So that's so beautiful that science has that, because it's exactly what mysticism has talked about when you talk about
Yes.
vibrating at a higher frequency and bring light into your body. It's the same,
Yes.
just in a different language, but it's exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. Like I said, in science, we say biofield, but it's the same exact thing as the aura, right? So, we may use different terminologies, and this is why I really bridge these worlds and kind of combine everything because people need to understand you cannot separate energy from the physical. You cannot say it's all interconnected, right? And it's important to understand that just by getting more light in your system, all of these mainstream problems goes away very quickly, very, very quickly.
Well, we're still stuck in treating symptoms. And as you said, like if you got to go back and back and back, by the time we see the symptom, it's too late. Like the symptom is the end result of something fundamentally going wrong in the body. So you mentioned uh, can you start talking about what you just mentioned? So I don't think people haven't heard of the companies that you're a part of and the incredible healing methodologies that they offer. Uh, do you want to start giving an overview as to that and how this can help equalize and make people resonate at a high frequency?
Absolutely. So I think the main company that you can the most important thing is to understand we've created something where you can access instantaneous healing, right? Which is biohealingstream.com. So just by going to that website, there's not even an app to download. You literally go to the website, biohealingstream.com, you sign up, you register. It's very affordable. There's nowhere in the world you can go and get 2 healing sessions per day for under a cup of coffee. So we have made it extremely affordable for people to access the purest form of energy using your own smart device, your own phone, your own laptop. Any way you can access your email, you can access this energy. So if someone is having a really rough day emotionally, or they're having a panic attack, and you go on and you click access stream, and that energy comes out within 5 minutes, you're you're back into full coherence. You're back into your body. You grounded again, right? So to be able to give people the opportunity to do that is where we really wanted to take this technology, because it's difficult or cumbersome when you always have to walk with a big device or something, or if you have to buy something that mitigates EMFs, you can't mitigate EMFs all the time. You can't. It's impossible. So we've done this because it's not about mitigating, it's not about blocking, it's about increasing your inner vibrational frequency, your inner light, which in turn increases your vibrational frequency so that you can naturally build your shield, which is your auric field around you. So these things don't bother you. You'll be surprised how quickly that mind chatter leaves your mind because it's not from the inside, it's from the outside. You'll be surprised how quickly that someone doesn't have to go into panic attacks and rely on medications. You know, this stream will help you to sleep because when you correct nervous system imbalances, almost everything else falls into place. And even when you're not streaming it, it's 30 minutes per session, the energy is still working in your system. So nothing can do that. If you're doing some type of modality, when that modality is done, the benefits are done. It doesn't work like that with the biohealing stream because it's helping you to activate more and more of your internal light stored in your DNA. So the more you use it, the more it compounds and the more protective. It's highly protective. It's good for the space. It's good for the body. It's good for the space around you. So just by going to that website and subscribing, um, people can access this anywhere in the world.
Where does this technology originate from? Like, is it similar to Rife technology? Is it something, is it different?
It's extremely different. So I love Raymond. I love Dr. Raymond Rife.
Yeah.
What he's created. All technologies on the market is based on frequency, which is a wave, has a polarity, a negative and a positive. There's polarity and frequency. I'm not dealing with polarity. I'm not dealing with frequency. I'm dealing with a particle of light, with particles. So this is what we're made of. We're made of light particles and waves. That's what we're made of at our essence, right? So, and things like hydrogen or hydrogen water or the hydrogen molecule is a conductor of that energy. So this is why, like hydrogen water right now. Why? Because I want to create more conductivity of my electrical systems, which is fed by biophotonics. So yeah, so it's a particle of light which translates after it's absorbed into increasing your vibrational frequency. So it's like going to the root of the root. It doesn't get deeper than that.
And what are some of the results you've seen from people from just doing these half-hour sessions?
Oh man. Number one, one of my first case studies was vets and people who had severe levels of anxiety and insomnia. If you have anxiety, you have insomnia. It's kind of um they all were off of medications within 48 hours, but even from the first night they slept. Not only that they slept like a rock all night, but their days at work was so much more, they had more patience, they had more tolerance for things. So their tolerance levels were built up. Things didn't seem to bother them as much. That's one. The other one was I had someone in severe depression, a young girl, 22 years old. She tried to commit suicide and she became depressed right after she got sick, right after she got the virus. And the next day, she went from being an athlete to being severely depressed, and she jumped off a 4-story house. She didn't die, and her dad was just very Western medicine oriented. And at this point, he was just desperate to find something to help her. I did one session. We streamed the energy. The next morning, she woke up and made breakfast for her entire family. Back to smiling, back to herself again. I've had people that was under severe pain that did this and their pain left their body. Um, and everything in the physical body works better when you increase the vibrational frequency. Everything. But those were some of my better ones. I would say people with the anxiety, people with the pain, people with insomnia, people with depression, or people who are wanting to boost their energy naturally. I've seen people who was like lethargic to the point where marriages were about to fail because their wife just like, I'm just tired of you. Like you can't do anything. Your quality of life is crappy because you have no energy to do anything. And after streaming this for the first week, they were back. Their mitochondria was functioning. They were producing more energy. Their mood was better. And it's like, oh my God, it was such a night and day turnaround, you know? So for me, it will actually, it affects your testosterone. It balances your hormones. It regulates your hormones. It regulates the neurotransmitters, balances the left and right hemisphere. So those are some really profound things that we've seen like hundreds and hundreds of times.
It sounds it's. I mean, when I reached out to you and I mentioned hydrogen, it's because I'm only talking to this because I've done a lot more research in that field. But what you just mentioned is exactly what the studies show with hydrogen in terms of it doesn't remove or add; it actually just balances everything. So if you have it over, yeah, if you've got too much of one chemical in your body, it will balance it out. So it's just regulating the entire system, and it sounds like the mechanism is exactly the same in terms of
It
you're affecting light.
is.
Yeah,
It is because a hydrogen is a structured element designed. It's like you take hydrogen water and you meditate, you will feel a
I
completely different level of meditation.
yeah. I mean, I just want to say, like, for me, anecdotally, when I started doing hydrogen properly, I can't describe, like, firstly, I've not been sick once, and I had a whole bunch of niggling injuries because I do a lot of athletic stuff, and they just went away. And then what you just mentioned, when I've meditated and done all these other things, I can almost feel my blood going to the extremities of my body that I've never even felt it in before. Like you can feel it going to the very ends of your fingernails and coming back. It's just this aliveness in the body. So I really can't actually wait to start trying this combined with your tech to see
Yes, you
what it does to
combine
me.
that. You're so right. And that's so exciting you say that because now you combine. So hydrogen is bringing more chi or more prana into the body. It's elevating the chi, is elevating prana. But
Mm,
now you combining prana and chi with light, that is massively powerful.
yeah. It's also somewhat it's worrying when you think that people aren't actually, this is not a manifestation of their spirit or their soul or themselves, these ailments that they're suffering from. It's almost, it sounds like you phrase it that they're hijacked by a lower frequency.
Yes.
And that is, I mean, that's another conversation entirely about what planet or what realm do we actually live in. I mean, I'm going to ask you actually, do you believe there are, uh, it's not my favorite word to throw around, but evil forces that are hijacking people's consciousness?
There are certainly dark, low, I would say
Dark's a better word.
lower vibrational forces, right? And the truth is we need them, but we need it has to be balanced. Has to be balanced. And then when I say that, it's not what people think. It's not about evil. Evil and dark is two different things. There's different layers and levels to this stuff, right? But you gotta have. That's why you have the yin and the yang, right? It's the balance of what's inside of you. The problem is the world is out of balance with the dark and with the light forces. And why all of this chaos is happening is it's trying to calibrate itself. We're fighting for balance right now. So if you really were to summarize what's going on, it's literally dark fighting against light, and they're both fighting to balance themselves out. Because at the same time, there's a lot of shit going on in this world. If you think about it and you take a look at it, a lot more people are becoming more aware
Yeah.
as a result of that.
It's waking people up for sure.
Always a double edge. It can never be just one. It's always a double edge. So, in as much as it's hurtful and painful and chaotic, it's also beautiful at the same time because a lot of people have awakened to things that they would have never dreamed of being aware of before this.
Mm. Yeah, that's the beautiful flip side, isn't it? There's all these possibilities which I've certainly never myself seen, and I'm seeing many other people experience. The possibilities of what it is to be a human being seem to be dramatically opening up. And
Yeah, but back like to your question, oh, there are absolutely dark forces, demonic forces, and you know I've seen it. I've seen it with people. I have a pastor, um, that got the photon from me, and this pastor specializes in possession, demonic possession. And the moment he held the biophoton, within 10 seconds, he said, "Oh my God, I feel like Holy Spirit like around me in 5 seconds." He's like, "Do you know how much I have to pray and invoke and bring that energy and to get myself into that state before I go to do one of these exorcisms?" And he's like, the minute he walked in with this thing, he's like, "Yeah, I literally saw like a mist of smoke just left the room
Can
because it's
you?
just pure light."
You've got to, just for people who are listening, there's this incredibly beautiful sphere. Oh my God, it's absolutely, that is one of the most aesthetic bits of technology I've ever seen. So this is the work that the other company, Illumis,
Yes,
creates. Can you
correct.
just look, people? I'll put the links so you can have a look at the site if you're listening.
So,
But I highly recommend jumping on YouTube just to look at that in real time.
yeah.
Because can you just quickly? I mean, it's probably not something you can quickly do, but like what's the summation of what that does and how it's. Can you hold it up again? I just really, oh my, yeah, that is unbelievably beautiful. It's. I would be more than happy to see that in a gallery.
Yes, yes.
So, what is this
So,
gorgeous sphere doing?
so this is the luminous sky. And essentially what this is doing, what they're all doing, they are harnessing biophotons from the atmosphere all the time. And it's emitting it, it's going into the geometry, which you see in the middle. And this is very, very unique technology, where um, that is designed to mathematically proportions. And it's actually the housing for the biophoton. And this, all of it came through channel. You cannot think about this stuff from a academic or academia, a mind of academia or intelligence. It comes from a different place. And it took us 3 years to get the information how to create one. 3 years of over 7,000 pages of downloads that we were getting numbers and mathematical proportions and how to design what's in the middle. And then it took us 6 months to find an engineer to take what was on the paper in the middle and make it into 3D. So this is harnessing all the time light from the atmosphere. So it is a source. There are no plugs, there's no battery. You don't have to, it never has to recharge. You can't even put it in the sun. So when you understand that this is a source, and that source is the pure light that is harnessing from the atmosphere. So when you hold it, it's putting that back into you. It's like having the power of the sun directly into your hands. It's exactly that.
It reminds me of something I'd seen in a sci-fi film when everyone's living finally in peace in some beautiful house, and they've got that huge orb in the middle of their room. It has that kind
Even
of
if I put this orb up
futuristic.
and you focus, yes. And you know what, Paul? Even if you focused in on it, you'll feel the energy calming your nervous system. Or even people that watches this after, just focus on it for like 30 seconds.
That actually, that is incredible, Gary.
Because it's light, only a particle of light could travel in quantum because it's not dictated by space, by distance and time. It can be there in a nanosecond. So by having this in your space, it's not only getting rid of the low vibrational frequencies, but it's always activating your stem cells, always activating your biofield and your defenses naturally. And that's weird. That's how we combat the world we live in at the end of the
Mm.
day.
You,
Only through light. Only through light.
I mean, you've just, that's another spiritual teaching. I mean, it's a thing, if you can't change others, you can only change yourself. And how you do that is by getting to higher frequencies of understanding and being. So, yeah, Gary, I'd love to finish. Like, what's your vision then for this planet, like, with the work you're doing? What if you had uh, your utopian vision realized? Sorry, I'm not saying your vision's utopian, but it's the utopian outcome that we can get closer to the source of light. Where do you see this work that you're doing taking us forward?
So right now we are designing, you know, what we're doing, we're actually creating special biophotons specifically for the Earth. And we're burying it along the meridians and we're creating some for the oceans because what is under attack is a vibrational frequency, right? And I buried one in the forest here. Like the entire forest is thriving. It's crazy. And to be able to put these things into the ocean because it never has to be recharged, it never runs out of energy. It's going to feed every form of life. So by in helping the earth to increase that frequency, which then in and that water gets absorbed back up into the clouds and it starts to work in the fourth dimension of consciousness because consciousness is chaotic right now. That's why we feel like this. So we want to increase that and harmonize the atmosphere by putting more biophotons in, but also helping the earth to raise the frequency so we can help the plant life, the animal life, and by doing this, it's really so highly effective, and it's already in the works, and the results are through the roof. So it's kind of our little secret project. So once any money that comes in, we always donate, back into the company to create this technology because it takes a lot of energy to create it, and then we bury it wherever it's needed along the meridians, along certain points, so the energy can travel across the grids. So I hope to come to your country one day and we can find the right spots and we can gather a team and do that there. Because we are no different from the planet. We are a body in a body in a body, like the Russian doll, right? So there's no differentiation between the earth and our bodies. So you have to treat the earth like you treat your body. So in the same way you think about increasing your vibrational frequency, it's the same way we need to increase the vibrational frequency of the planet.
Gary, I've so enjoyed talking to you, and if anything, you've just left me with more questions, which is beautiful. Like, much more to delve into, and I'm so thankful for the work you're doing. And if there's a time ever that we need people like you doing this kind of work, it's now. I will leave everything in the show notes for people, so all the link offs to the work, and it's a free. I remember for the biotuning, it's a free trial, isn't it? So people can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. The first session to experience it is free, so definitely. And then if they like that after that, they could scrap what I'll do for you, Paul. I'll create a special link for your crowd that will give them a little bit of a
Oh,
discount
thank
code.
you.
Even though it's not
Yeah,
expensive, the devices are expensive because we can only make 40 per month because it's all handmade. But I will create a special code for you, for your crowd, for them to experience this. And if they want to subscribe, they can, they can easily do that using your link. So I'll provide that to you.
thank you, Gary, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Paul. This is awesome. Thank you.